somebody you know right now, at work, at church, at the cookout, did things in the 1980s that would get them arrested, sued, or shut down if they tried it in 2026. They weren't criminals. They were just gay. And the system left them so few options that the only way to have a life was to build one that ran outside every rule the country had on the books. I'm Frank, and this one is going to hit different. Because the stuff gay Gen X had to do to survive the 80s, the workarounds, the underground systems, the backdoors and fake names, all of it would violate somebody's law today. Health codes, liquor licenses, fire marshals, child protection statutes, identity fraud, obstruction. The 80s didn't give gay people a legal path to anything, so they made their own. And now, 4 decades later, the paths they built would be illegal under the very system that claims to have fixed everything. Here are 10 things gay Gen X did in the 1980s that would be illegal today. Number 1. They carried a pocket guide to unlicensed bars. There was a book called the Damron Address Book. It had been around since 1964, and it listed gay bars, bathhouses, and meeting spots across the country. The word gay never appeared on the cover, not until 1999. The whole thing was written in coded abbreviations that only made sense if you already knew the language. You didn't buy this book at a bookstore. You found it inside one of the bars it listed, sold under the counter. And a good number of the places in that guide, they had no liquor license, no health inspection, no fire code compliance. They were operating in basements, back rooms, and converted apartments. Today, distributing a directory of unlicensed, uninspected establishments would put you on the wrong side of about 6 different regulatory agencies before lunch. But in the 80s, this little book was the only GPS gay America had, and people guarded it like it was a birth certificate. Number 2. They paid the mafia for the right to have a drink. New York's State Liquor Authority classified any bar that served openly gay customers as a disorderly house. That made it nearly impossible to get a legal liquor license. So the mafia bought buildings, converted them into private bottle clubs, and ran them without permits. Gay men paid inflated cover charges and drank watered-down liquor in rooms controlled by organized crime, knowingly. They knew who owned the place. They knew the drinks were marked up. They knew the exits were questionable. And they went anyway, because the alternative was staying home for the rest of their 20s. Today, knowingly patronizing a business run by a criminal enterprise, with no license and no inspection, would get the establishment shut down and everyone inside questioned. In the 80s, it was called Saturday night. Number 3. They used a color-coded system to solicit strangers in public. Gay men developed something called the handkerchief code. You'd tuck a colored bandana into your back pocket. The color told people what you were into. The pocket, left or right, told them your role. It was a full communication system designed to facilitate sexual contact between strangers in public spaces without saying a word. Today, that falls squarely under public solicitation statutes in most jurisdictions. You can't stand in a park with a signaling device designed to arrange sexual encounters and call it a fashion choice. But in the 80s, a bandana was safer than a conversation, because a conversation could be recorded. A conversation could be used as evidence. A bandana just looked like a bandana, unless you knew the code. And the people who needed to know always knew. Number 4. They cruised parks, rest stops, and public bathrooms. Before apps, before the internet, before personal ads that didn't require your real name, gay men found each other in public spaces. Parks after dark, highway rest stops, department store bathrooms, certain sections of certain beaches. These locations had their own rules, their own rhythms, their own lookout systems. Everyone understood the signals. A lingering glance, a positioned stance, a repeated walk past the same bench. Today, every single one of these activities falls under public indecency, loitering with intent, or lewd conduct statutes. Undercover stings still happen at some of these locations, and the charges stick. But in the 80s, a public park at 11 p.m. was the closest thing to a dating app that existed, and a lot of people met the love of their life standing next to a water fountain pretending to tie their shoe. Number 5. They ran lookout systems to help people evade police. When police raided gay bars, and they did, regularly, the bars adapted. They posted someone at the front door whose only job was to watch the street. If a squad car slowed down, if an unmarked vehicle parked too close, the lookout signaled and the bar went into protocol. Music changed, lights adjusted, people repositioned. In San Francisco, a block of bars on Market Street reportedly had underground tunnels connecting them, so patrons could move between venues during a raid without going outside. Today, operating a coordinated warning system to help people evade law enforcement is obstruction of justice. Running an escape tunnel between commercial buildings violates building codes, fire safety laws, and probably a few zoning regulations. But in the 80s, the guy standing by the door with a cigarette and a nervous look on his face was the most important person in the room. Number 6. They let teenagers into adult spaces because there was nowhere else. Here's one that nobody wants to talk about, but it happened constantly. Gay teenagers in the 80s had zero resources. No school counselor was going to help them. No youth group existed for them. No hotline. No website. Nothing. So they found their way into adult gay bars and clubs, and the adults inside let them stay. Because everyone in that room remembered being 15 with nowhere to go. The bartenders looked the other way. The regulars kept an eye on them. It was an informal system of protection built inside a space that was never designed for minors. Today, allowing an underage person into a licensed bar is a criminal offense for the establishment, and potentially for every adult who knew about it. Liability laws, child protection statutes, liquor board regulations, all of it would come down like a hammer. But in the 80s, a 17-year-old with a fake ID and a terrified look on his face walked into a gay bar, and for the first time in his life, somebody said, "You're okay." And that mattered more than any law on the books. Number 7. They used fake names for everything. Gay people in the 80s operated under aliases the way spies operate undercover. You had your real name, the one on your driver's license, the one your boss knew, and then you had your name, the one you used at the bar, the one you gave out at parties, the one attached to the P.O. box where you received your mail order magazines. Some people maintained 2 completely separate identities for years. Different names, different phone numbers, different social circles that never overlapped. Today, using a false identity to open a P.O. box is mail fraud. Using a fake name on official documents is identity fraud. Maintaining a false identity for the purpose of concealing your activities from law enforcement could be charged as obstruction. In the 80s, it was called staying employed. Number 8. They distributed explicit materials through the U.S. mail. Underground gay newspapers, zines, and magazines circulated through the postal system throughout the 80s. Some of them contained health information that doctors refused to give out. Some of them contained personal ads, the only way to find other gay people if you lived in a rural area. And some of them contained explicit content that was mailed in plain brown envelopes to subscribers who had no other access to any representation of their own lives. Today, mailing unsolicited explicit material can violate federal obscenity statutes. Even solicited material has to comply with content regulations that didn't exist in any practical form back then. But in the 80s, a plain brown envelope from a P.O. box in San Francisco might be the only thing telling a 22-year-old in rural Arkansas that he wasn't the only one. Number 9. They shared medications without a prescription. When the government refused to acknowledge what was happening to their community, gay men started sharing whatever medical information and supplies they could get their hands on. Antibiotics passed between friends. Experimental treatments obtained through buyers' clubs that operated in legal gray areas. Information about symptoms and remedies circulated through newsletters because doctors either didn't know, didn't care, or wouldn't see you. Today, distributing prescription medication without a license is a felony in every state. Operating a buyer's club without FDA approval violates federal pharmaceutical regulations. Even sharing medical advice in an organized fashion without credentials can trigger liability issues. But in the 80s, the choice was between a friend handing you a bottle of pills he got from a connection in Mexico and waiting for a government that pretended you didn't exist to write you a prescription. People chose the friend. Number 10. They held parties in spaces that violated every code in the building. When the bars weren't safe, and the streets weren't safe, and your apartment wasn't big enough, people threw parties. Warehouse parties, loft parties, rooftop parties, basement parties in buildings that had no certificate of occupancy for public gatherings, no fire exits marked, no maximum occupancy posted, no permits filed. The sound system was plugged into a residential outlet. The bar was a folding table with bottles somebody drove across state lines to avoid tax. And 200 people packed into a space designed for storage. Today, every single element of that party would generate a violation. Fire marshal, health department, liquor control, noise ordinance, building code, tax evasion, insurance liability. In the 80s, somebody hung a disco ball from a pipe, plugged in a turntable, and gave an entire neighborhood the only place they could go where the music was loud enough to drown out the rest of the world. And that's what people miss when they talk about how far things have come. Yeah, the laws changed. The courts caught up. The country eventually decided that gay people are allowed to exist in public. But the way gay Gen X survived the 80s? The underground bars, the fake names, the coded bandanas, the mob-run clubs, the escape tunnels, the warehouse parties, the brown envelopes, the shared pills, the teenagers in adult spaces. Every single one of those survival tactics would be a crime today. The system they had to build because the legal one shut them out, that system is now illegal under the legal one that replaced it. The people who lived through it are still here. They're in their 50s and 60s. They go to brunch now. They have mortgages. They look completely ordinary. But every single one of them spent a decade operating like a character in a spy novel just to have a Friday night. And the country that made them do it never once said thank you or sorry. If you've been watching this channel, you already know the stuff worth talking about is usually the stuff everyone skipped. Hit subscribe if you want more of it, and I'll see you in the next one.